Hey everybody, welcome back. So this is the little sort of videos I do where I look back at the stories I've written and try and sort of tell you what I was trying to do and have a look back, see if I actually did that or not or whatever. And just sort of try and take some notes and give some sort of idea of what was going through my head as I was trying to write it and how I was trying to sort of convey that to you or people as an audience and see if that worked or not. And this is, I usually find this quite interesting because you sort of go back and look at the stories that you've written and sort of think, oh yeah, that bit worked, that bit didn't work, and whatever. So this is Wolfe Horror, and this is the fourth story. Yeah, so I did the first two to this trilogy, then went off and wrote the Wolfe one, Storybook Woods one, and this was sort of always just sitting in the background waiting to be finished because I knew obviously it was a trilogy. I knew that Hans had got to Wolfe Asylum and I was sort of just had it on the back burner, so I had a lot of time to sort of churn things over in my head as to sort of what could happen at Wolfe, maybe things like that. So when I came to writing it, I had quite a sort of a lot of notes and or ideas to it. So the concept was it was the final showdown. Hans tracks Laurie down to Wolfe Asylum and it says here where hopefully carnage ensues. Well, it does, leaving either Laurie or Hans dead. I wanted to bring Becca back because I like the character from the first one, and it's interesting to sort of like latch onto a character that you like and pull them back into other stories. That's something that I always wanted, and I had a little event for her where she'd just basically follow Laurie around the asylum, so we could use her more as a character. I had an initial idea to have Lucinda Kopp back, the detective or police officer, now detective from the first one, and I had her as an event, and she was sort of wandering. I played a few games of it, and she was wandering around the asylum sort of alone, and it just became a little bit too chaotic, so I scrapped that idea when I came to playing the actual game and just went for Becca following around. And I had two ideas. I had if Laurie wins, Hans blames Laurie for the death of his mother. Maybe she dies in childbirth. And this is why he wants to kill Laurie. Ending will be Laurie as a teacher. Students have sort of given her a bit of back chat, and we get to see her eyes flash red. So I was going to sort of follow on with a little bit of the fact that they are sisters, and even though Hans was the bad guy, there's a little bit of Hans in Laurie, and the children are like, oh, I'm not going to mess with Miss Carpenter again. And I had if Hans wins, the twist will be that if Laurie has been psychically controlling Hans, making him kill when she was a baby, she had returned to Camp Happy Trail, she reconnected with Hans, this is why Hans has been dormant for years, and made him kill the boys, because all the victims in the first story were boys. One was the boyfriend who she thought had cheated on her with Becca. Becca's boyfriend at Makeout Point as a punishment, and will reveal Laurie, actually killed Pete instead of sending him to town, because that was the one she rescued at the fire pit, who was Becca's other love interest in the whole Becca love triangle thing in the first one, or hinted at there. So she was pissed off with Becca, and she set this whole thing up to kill Becca. Before the final showdown, Hans will be electrocuted, which damages part of his brain, meaning that he's no longer controlled by Laurie. Hans just wants to live a peaceful life in the wild and now must stop Laurie. And I've got here, maybe we do this ending even if Laurie wins and Laurie turns into the killer. Yeah. So that's what I had way before I started sort of writing it. And when I actually came to play the game, I had that, obviously all that in my head. And the game sort of went in a way that the ending where Laurie was the killer seemed to just sort of fit. So when I came to writing it, I thought I always preferred that because it's just a complete and utter sort of 360. So when I actually came to writing it, I wanted to use that ending, and that definitely influenced the way I wrote it. So I've got a few notes on when I was writing here, and it says when I was writing with the twist in mind. So I was almost trying to deliberately throw people off the scent while making sure it made sense in context of the ending that I'd chosen. And some examples of this, I've got Laurie as a baby. This could have been interpreted, and this is the backstory that I'm not going to actually do the video for, but I did a little sort of 5-minute backstory of Hans and Laurie when they were younger. So Laurie as a baby, this could be interpreted as Laurie being brave and Hans being jealous, but is really Laurie controlling Hans and being joyful in the death. So when she's playing, so the killing starts when Laurie's born, obviously, because Laurie's now controlling Hans, but we're trying to sort of give the idea that Hans is jealous, and that's why he starts killing. And Laurie's sort of playing with entrails, which tries to sort of give the impression that she's, fearless and not bothered by death and rock hard, but really she's just probably a little bit nuts. And okay, so when we come to Laurie's fight or exchange with Hans, which it happens sort of quite early in the game, this would have made no sense to have a fight with the ending in mind, so I switched it into a mental fight. And I'm trying to get the audience to think it's an expansion of the psychic connection between the two. Perhaps Laurie isn't strong enough to hand-to-hand combat with him at that point, so she exploits the psychic connection to fight Hans. But in reality, is it Laurie programming Hans? As in, so Hans breaks into the storage room, attacks Becca, and Laurie rips at him psychically and says, "No, we're saving her till the end. Now you nip off and kill the rest of the asylum." So she's sort of telling me off mentally, is maybe what I think I was trying to suggest with that. And then we've got Hans pauses and feels tenderness towards Sal at the end of his rampage, only to be enraged when she mentions her brother, playing on the fact there is something more beneath the mask, only to be jolted out of it by a reminder of his sister. And the final bit, we've got the eyes turning blue when his brain is fried, which I mentioned earlier, so he's free from the mental control, and then he comes after Laurie and says stop it, and there's a big fight. And they all work, I think, in the context of the ending. And we'll have a look as it sort of goes through, and I'll show you where I was trying to do that. And then I've got Dr. Death. I'm still not sure about the pill mechanic. I think it was trying to imply that Death has been using Laurie's DNA to formulate the pills. He wanted Hans at Wolfe Asylum so he can study the interaction and confirm his theory. And then, obviously, we get Dr. Death sort of disappearing off into the night with the pills. Maybe to return, maybe not, don't know. And then the other note I've got is that I was worried that the twist wouldn't go down well. I thought it might have been a little bit over the top because obviously it's the heroine of the story and all of a sudden she's the bad guy. So I was a little worried about that as a writer. I didn't know whether to use that or not. And then after I've reviewed it, I generally like it. I like the premise. I like the twist. I like the way I've set the twist up, to be perfectly honest, but it's too fast. It was the longest story I've written word counted. I think it was the longest story I've filmed, and the narration was way too fast. Generally difficult to narrate slowly, so I expect it's something you learn over time. And I talk fast. I realise I'm talking fast now, so it's difficult. But it just, and when you listen to it back, particularly the bit with Hans when he goes on his killing spree, I think it's just too fast. It's too over the top. And I think, I've got a note here, I think this would work almost twice as long, but with more breathing room in between what happens, because it is literally just Hans killing everybody most of the story. And I've also put, if I knew the ending, I would have written Happy Trail slightly differently, possibly. That'd be an interesting thing to come back and look at and do differently. And then I've got a note, and this came up in the Discord as well from some feedback from Celeste, I think. Are they all the same? As in all the stories the same? And that's the thing that got me thinking about this more overall. So anyway, I'm going to pop this on now, and we'll have a look at... here we go. We'll have a look at how it plays out. So we start off with Lucinda Cott, topping and tailing the story. And she's on the phone to introduce Dr. Diath, who I know somebody called
Happy Trail,
whose surname is Diath, so that's a good one.
Dead.
So,
John Knox,
and here we go.
Dead. Deacon Smith,
all
dead.
the victims from
Peter Jones, missing,
other ones, but Peter Jones dead. Missing, presumed dead.
That was not
so
a good
is he
use
dead?
of male camp
Did Laurie
counselor.
save him? But nobody's seen him
Suzanne
since.
Shaw,
So
committed,
we're going back to the
raving about
implication
a
that
white
Laurie
wolf.
actually killed him.
The Maple Lane pile was even thicker. Thank you for holding
And
Detective
Cops phoning up
The voice
because
at the end of the phone
obviously
snapped
she
her back
knows
from a
about
daydream.
Hans
Yes,
at Maple
I do
Lane,
have the paperwork, but I urge you
and
to
they've told her to
reconsider.
release Laurie because they
We
now
are
know that
working
Hans
with
is
Miss
the killer.
Carpenter. It would be very dangerous to stop her treatment
And
now.
obviously Dr. Death,
Dr. Diath.
Dr. Diath
Paperwork
doesn't
is
want
clear.
Laurie released
Laurie Carpenter
because
is
he
to
still
be
wants to
released
experiment on her.
immediately. Detective Kopp said sternly. You're
You're
making a
making a
mistake,
mistake,
Detective. Diath countered. There is more work to be done with Miss
Line from
Carpenter.
Hellraiser 2. I
She
did that about
exhibits
3 times in
highly
this.
unusual
Just
brain
slipped
activity.
in lines from some
We
other
have to
films.
see.
We have to see.
know.
We have to
I
know.
must be
Is
allowed
from
to
Hellraiser 2. I think
to
I was watching it. I went,
investigate.
ooh, that will fit in. So I
Dr.
just
Diath,
quick make a note of that.
continued. Laurie Carpenter has been exonerated. Not only that, we also have credible evidence that Hans Metzger may be on his way to Wolfe Asylum. Credible evidence. Diath
I think this was the first one I used
A
sort of sound
newspaper
effects a lot
cutting
more,
of the
so I've got the sort
testimony
of
of a
crackling on the line
geriatric
to
couple
imply
is
that
not
the
what I would call
trying to
credible
imply that the
evidence
phone
of
lines are going to go
existence
down
of
at
some kind of unstoppable
Wolfe
killer.
Asylum at some
The
stage, which
syndicate
they
was beginning
obviously
to lose
do.
her patience. Your opinion on the matter is irrelevant, Doctor. I have arranged for Rebecca Martin to collect Laurie. She will be there within
Yeah,
the hour,
because I'm
at which
pretty
time
sure you
Laurie
wouldn't be
Carpenter
sending
will have been
some
processed for release.
student
If
to
not,
pick up a
I'll not only have your job, but your balls in a sling.
potential
Am I making myself clear?
whoever from a
Lucinda Cobb didn't wait for the
lunatic
response.
asylum. But
Slammed the
yes,
receiver
gloss
down.
over that.
Pompous prick.
She's going to go there now and make sure that
Wanting to make sure her instructions were followed, she grabbed the Glock
all's
22
well.
from her desk and holstered it while making her way to the car. By her reckoning, she would be at Wolfe Asylum before morning.
Obviously on that.
Dr. Diath's eyes
Then we
flicked longingly to
flick
the brass
to
handled drug
Dr.
in his
Diath and
antique
sort of
oak
try and
desk in the small
outline the
office
fact
within
that
the
he's
operating
actually...
theatre.
There's
They
something else we
lingered
don't quite know
slightly
what's
before he
going on
arose
here,
from
but I
his
don't know what's
Italian
going on.
leather chair and walked over to
There's
the
something else going on.
meticulously catalogued collection of vinyl.
As in
He
he's
selected Beethoven's Piano
up to
Sonata
something.
number 14 and placed it on his antique
And Dr.
gramophone.
Diath, Dr.
The needle
Death,
crackled as the music
Moonlight
began to
Sonata.
play.
Good
He
excuse to
sat back
stick a
down,
couple of bits of my
switched on the
favourite
custom
classical music
surveillance
in as well.
system that he had instructed be installed at the asylum.
Incredible
Credible
evidence.
evidence
I'm
of
counting on it, my dear.
coming here.
Click. And he is
Counting on
essentially
it, my
ripped
dear.
off from,
He
inspired
said
by
to himself.
The
As his
Mask,
gaze fell on the
Dr.
external
Decker
hammer in the
from
northeast quadrant,
Nightbreed,
his
or
lips curled
Cabal,
into a
the book,
satisfied smile.
Nightbreed, the film. If you haven't seen Nightbreed, that's a...
Lightning
I
crinked
quite
over
like
the Art
that.
Deco facade of Wolfe
Get it
Asylum.
watched.
The building was foreboding
And this
from
is
summer. The winter storm
this is
created
one of the
even
things I
more
really
menacing.
like about doing the stories is how to
Warren
get
Blackwood was conducting an
people
inventory
in
of the storeroom
places,
when the door burst
you know,
open.
where they're going.
The
And with
lightning
this one,
flash
the
lit up
setup
the silhouette of the
was
huge figure
him,
filling the
Hans
doorway.
starting in solitary,
Blackwood stumbled back,
and
dropping his
then
coffee.
also Hannibal
The mug shattered.
with two victims in solitary. So
Move,
I
Rodriguez
quite
commanded.
like the way I've got
Shoving the
Hans
barrel
and the
of
two
12-gauge
victims,
Remington wingmaster into
two of the
small of
guards,
Hans's back.
into solitary
The lumbering giant
with
stepped
Hannibal.
forward into
As
the
in,
asylum.
Hans has turned up at the asylum.
The actual fuck, Rodriguez.
That's the
Blackwood
grumpy
barked.
prison
Me
warden.
and Jonesy
Yeah, so
found
Hans
his
has
clown
turned
on
up.
the grounds, dressed
He's
like
been
a
wandering about
Halloween
the grounds,
carrying
and the
this
guards
shit
have actually brought him
Rodriguez
inside.
replied, tipping his head towards
And they're
Jonesy,
just going
who
to
was
stick him in
struggling
solitary
behind,
confinement
dragging
and
Hans's massive
get somebody to come
sledgehammer
and
with both hands.
deal with
What do
him.
you want me to do with
And
him?
obviously it all kicks
Rodriguez
off.
asked. Geez, this is all we need on top of this goddamn
I think Blackwood's
storm.
a sort of little bit of
Blackwood
comic
sighed.
relief, maybe.
Stick him in
He's just so
solitary.
beaten down. And then we got
In
the guy
solitary.
dragging the
Dejected,
hammer.
breathless from the effort of dragging the massive hammer. Well, get the good doctor back to his
So,
room. lock
Hannibal's
this
in
clown
solitary.
and stash that crap he was carrying
Guards are
somewhere
taking
safe. I'll try the
Hans
phones
to
again.
solitary. Blackwood's going to try the phones because
Bring
they've
me a
obviously
goddamn
packed him,
fresh
so they can't
coffee,
phone anybody.
He yelled
God,
after
it's
the
not a
pair
good
as they
day.
marched
It's not a good day
hands
to
down
be
the
a
corridor.
resident of Wolfe
We got a
Asylum.
nice cell for you, big boy.
Rodriguez is a bit of a
pair
dick.
Guards shepherded Hans down the corridor.
Jonesy's
towards
all right.
solitary. Hannibal
Perhaps a bit out
glanced
of
up
shape.
idly as the door to the padded room opened. Oh, hello, Officer
Hannibal
Rodriguez.
is
Having your
obviously
boyfriend, do we?
kind of based
I thought
on
you only had eyes for me.
on
Screw you,
Hannibal
psycho.
Lecter.
Rodriguez replied. You get a
Probably
reprieve. Back to
more,
your
in
room,
my mind, the
he said to
Brian
Hannibal.
Cox
You,
Hannibal Lecter
in
from
there, he
the
continued,
80s
pressing the
Manhunter.
shotgun hard
Another
into
great
Hans's
film if you haven't
back.
seen that.
Hans stepped forward into the padded cell. Drop that shit and get the doc back to his room, Rodriguez said to Jonesy as he stepped back away from Hans. Abruptly, the monster turned.
And what I did, I knew
Swift
this
as
was
a
going to be
lightning,
now the
flying against
last
the sky through the small
story I
window.
wrote with
Hans
Hans,
grabbed Rodriguez with both
one
his
way or
hands.
the other.
The speed of the move
So
took
I
Rodriguez
wanted
by
to get a
surprise.
load of
His shotgun
different
dropped harmlessly to the floor
kills
as Hans
in,
lifted him 2
and I
feet
had
in the
quite a
air
lot
to
of
eye level.
opportunity.
Violently, he
So he
jerked
first of all
Rodriguez
smashes
forward. There was a
Rodriguez's
sickening crack as
face into
Rodriguez's
his
face
mask.
connected with Hans's mask.
And this
Force
game was so
violent
brutal,
that
I
Hans's
put the
face
kill
immediately
count in.
caved in. The hollow indentation where his features
So
was
we
clearly
haven't even
visible as
started yet. I think this
Hans
is
fell to the floor. Holy shit,
maybe the end of
Jonesy
the first turn.
exclaimed.
And I
He flailed for the
switched up
panic alarm while
the turns
simultaneously
ever
trying
so
to holster his
slightly
taser.
to
Hannibal
make it
jumped
make
forward
more
and
sense
shoved
of the
Jonesy
story. And I think
backwards,
it does
slamming
make more
against the
sense of a
wall.
story because the problem we
Jonesy's
had
back
with
hit the
Maple
panic
Lane
button,
was it flicked
triggering
backwards
the
and
asylum
forwards.
security system. Hans
So he's
slowly
now
turned to Jonesy as he
triggered the
regained
security
balance.
system by
Grabbing
going
the
into the
confused
thing, the
guard's head
silent
with both
alarm,
hands,
which
he
has
twisted
locked all the
brutally,
doors in the
rotating
asylum,
Jonesy's head
which
a
means
full
nobody can
360
get out.
degrees. The
That's,
sound of every bone in Jonesy's
so
neck snapping
I'm just sort of
was
trying to think why. I always
As
think
Jonesy
why
fell
aren't
to
people
the
leaving?
floor,
Why aren't the
stood
victims just
curiously,
running?
the
Why aren't
strange man in the
everybody
white suit standing next to him in
doing
opposite
anything? So I'm
ends
trying to put a
silence.
reason in.
Hannibal reached
for
out
that.
his hand. Hello, old chap.
Hello.
Hannibal said coolly.
Hello, Hannibal.
I have a feeling we're going to be friends.
Yep.
Ignoring the strange man, Hans stepped to the door of the cell.
I did,
Hannibal
you know,
followed behind.
I was trying to
He
sort
slowly
of
bent down to retrieve
make
the
Hannibal a
weapons
bit
Jonesy
sort of
left in the
slimy and a
corridor.
bit charming and a bit
Meticulously
sort of
tucking
like,
the
you know, he
razor-sharp
thinks his
butcher's
day's
knife
going to
into
go
his sheath
particularly
and
well,
securing the
but
cleavage to his
obviously.
belt before slowly
And I had a list of
picking up
kills
the
I
massive
wanted to say,
sledgehammer
oh,
with
maybe
his
he could do this, and
Shall
Hans
we
just
go?
sort of like shoves the hammer out behind him and the
Started to
shaft
say
of it
before he was
goes into
cut off
Hannibal.
abruptly as Hans thrust out the shaft of the hammer behind him, impaling Hannibal through the heart. Why? Hannibal stammered as he slid from the shaft.
See you later, Hannibal. So we're 3 down, we're like on turn 2, and I think
the heart of the asylum.
after the next tarot card we drew,
Thanks for coming, Becca, Laurie said as
We'll
she
see.
and Becca entered the main reception to Wolfe.
So now we've got Laurie, and
Becca replied.
the disappointment I have about this story is it didn't really feature Laurie perhaps as much as I wanted it to. A lot of that's down to the gameplay,
Deep down, she knew that Laurie had saved them.
and
That
it's
had spurred her on
because
to study law, gaining a scholarship at
Hans
Harvard.
went so violent so
Simon Goodlooks,
quickly.
raven hair,
I thought the best
trademark red
tactic was
lipstick
probably
had
just to
led many
find a
of her fellow
weapon,
students to
so I just
underestimate her. That
ended
was
up in
until they
medical
engaged
storage
her in
just
debate.
rummaging about.
Between studies, she had spent most of her spare time.
So Laurie
working on
didn't
Laurie's
really
case.
do much,
Although
so
it
it
had
was
taken
difficult to
instance
write
at
her in
Maple
a
Lane to finally prove
different way, but
Laurie's
it does
But
kind
there
of
was
play
no
into
way
the
she
end
was
of
not
it a
going
little
to be
bit.
there when her friend
And
was
Becca,
finally released.
again,
I'm
now
sorry
is
I
the
had
only
to be in
person
here,
who
Laurie.
believed
How
Laurie
terrible was it? Becca
and
asked her
thinks she
friend.
shouldn't be in the asylum, so she's
Can't
gone on
tell
to
you,
study law. So I'm trying to
Laurie
develop the
replied.
Becca character a little bit.
Patients were bad. The guards
And
worse.
I'll give you some thoughts on
wouldn't
that at
wish
the
it on
end, because
anyone.
I think
They,
there's more
she
going on
continued,
with
trailing off
Becca
and looking
even
down,
after this
avoiding eye
than there was
contact with
before.
Becca. I can't talk about it. There
And
only
this was
one
just
doctor,
like, so
one
Laurie's
person
sort of
in this
like
whole hellish place
outlining
who
the fact that
was nice,
she
who
wasn't
helped. The rest
wasn't
can
particularly
rot.
fond of anybody
She
in the
spat with
asylum.
vitriol.
Maybe
Thank
they all
God I'm
deserve to
getting
die.
out. Becca smiled sympathetically. Strange, no one on reception.
But again, I'm
Becca
not
commented, glancing around the
trying
ornate lobby
to
the asylum.
tell you this, I'm
Perhaps
just
they're dealing
trying
with
to
the fallout
hint the
from
fact that
storm,
Laurie only
replied.
I only saved one victim, but
Abruptly, an
there's
interval
only
word.
one person in there who
Can
was
all
nice
guests
for
please
Laurie,
return
the
to their
rest of them
rooms?
can rot.
The entrance
So
doors
I'm
will
trying
be
to
locked to
give you
ensure
the
guests'
impression
safety. The
that
mechanical voice
Laurie's not
boomed
had a
from the
good time in
loudspeaker
there,
as the lock to the main door clicked behind the girls.
but I'm also
Hey,
perhaps trying to tell you
Becca
that
called Laurie.
when
Nothing.
Hans goes on
Becca called
the
again. Hey,
the
Laurie. Laurie looked over
rampage,
to her
it
friend.
kind of makes some
Laurie,
kind of sense because
he's
it's
here.
Laurie's getting her
Hans
revenge
is
on the
here.
rest of the asylum.
Laurie's face
That
did
line
not
was
change.
directly
I
from
know,
Story
she
Upwards
replied calmly.
story. It felt
Becca
very
ran to the door
clumsy,
and
but
yanked it with all her might.
it kind of
Leave
had
the
to
door
link in to make
locked.
the overall
Damn,
thing
she
work, the
cursed.
whole storytelling
What do we do?
side of it that I'm going to
Laurie stared blankly
get
at
to
Becca,
throughout
as if in a
things.
trance. Laurie! Becca shouted. Laurie snapped back to reality. This way, she said,
So
grabbing Becca's hand
she's
and
like,
dragging her
let's go
back
hide
from
in
the
medical
reception area
storage,
towards the adjoining corridor.
because there's a trash
I
can
know
lid in
somewhere
there.
we can hide.
And I wasn't
The pair soon
expecting
reached the
Hans to
medical
kill
storage
everybody in
room.
his first 3
Laurie
turns.
checked all was clear. The pair entered the room and locked the door.
So we're now back with Hans.
In the main common room of the
Oh no,
asylum,
we're now
bingo
just sort of
nights
telling you
were
where
in full
everyone else
flow.
is.
Despite the instructions
Bingo
to
night
return
was
to
the
their rooms,
setup.
the residents that were gathered round the table continued with their game.
And we're just
until
sort
the
of
automated
introducing a
caller
few
announced,
people
"Man alive,
in
number
the
5. Bingo!
in
shouted
the
Riggs, jumping onto the table
common room.
triumphantly and throwing his arms aloft.
So I'm going to make
Sal,
the
Barney
notes
and
here.
Reynolds looked at him suspiciously. "Gimme that," Reynolds said gruffly, reaching over and grabbing Miggs's game card. "Bingo? You can't draw a picture of a dog and yell
Good
bingo, you
line.
freaking
That came
nut job."
from interaction with people
B-I-N-G-O,
on the Discord forums, because I was going to say bingo,
B-I-N-G-O,
and one of the
bingo
things I'm
was
pretty
his
sure that we
name.
say in this country in bingo is we go house,
Miggs
as in we've
sang
got
to
a
the
full
tune of the
house of
children's
numbers,
song.
and we say
Trailing off,
house,
he looked
and
over to the door
people
of
are
the
like, what are you talking
common
about?
room.
That
Despite his
makes no
size,
sense.
Quartet had
What do you
not
shout?
raised
You
his
shout
hands into the
bingo.
room. He stood menacingly in
So
the
that
doorway.
came to there's a little
We're in
joke
trouble
about
now, Miggs shouted
Miggs being in a
gleefully.
lunatic asylum,
"Hey,
actually drawing a dog
fuckface,
called
you missed
Bingo,
Halloween,"
and
Reynolds taunted,
claiming
his
he'd
hand
won
slowly
because he's got
strode over
bingo.
towards the group,
But
stopping a
it
foot
just,
away from
that
where Reynolds was sitting.
just,
"Hey,
I think that works
I
quite
said you
well.
missed," Reynolds began.
Then we're
Hans
like,
swiftly unhooked
they
his
don't
cleaver and swung
quite
its end in an
understand the
overhead
severity
motion
of the
towards crown of
situation.
Reynolds' head. The cleaver connected with a crack, plunging into the top
Until,
of Reynolds'
and I wanted
head
to do a
and
couple of
splitting
meat
it
cleaver
lengthways.
kills.
As Reynolds' head
That was
cleaved
actually
into the
Sledgehammer
cleaver,
Rush, so I couldn't
Reynolds
write the
slumped
tarot
to the
cards because I
floor.
didn't want.
Sal
I
and
wanted
Barney
different
shot
kills.
backwards, sending their
But
chairs crashing to the
that's a
floor.
double move, so we're going solitary into the
Miggs
common
tittered
room
gleefully
and a
before the
double
swipe
kill.
of Hans's razor-sharp
And
cleaver slashed
this,
across his
that was the
abdomen
tarot
with such
card on
force
turn
that 70
2,
strode
I
all the way
think.
through to the
So
spine.
by beginning
The
of
wound
turn
so
3,
deep that the weight of
he's
Miggs's
already
head
on
was
5
sent
bloodlust.
falling backwards.
This is not going to be
Bright red
a
blood
quiet
sprayed
game.
Hans in the black and white checkered
If you can
tiles
deny
across the
Hans
floor.
victims,
Sal and
he
Barney
can
ran,
be quite
slipping on the
sort of
blood
slow and
crashing through the
cumbersome.
doors of the
If he
common
kills
room,
5
his
on the
hand
first 2
meticulously wiped
turns,
his cleaver, resheathed it, and attached it to
it's
his
like,
belt. Looking
uh-oh.
upon the carnage, he calmly turned and left the room the way he entered.
And he's now going for Laurie. This is
What
that
the
was a
fuck was
he
that?
wants me tarot
Warden
card, so
Blackwood
he's
mumbled
going to
to
go straight
himself as
past
he
Warden
headed
Blackwood.
towards
So we have a
Solitary.
little bit
Having
of
to get
light
his own
relief, I
replacement
think,
mug
with
of coffee
Warden
meant he was
Blackwood
not
because
in the
he's
best of
been
humour.
grumpy. He's gone looking
Rodriguez
for
and
people.
Jonesy
They
hadn't returned his
keep doing in doing in there?
Useless pricks.
And he's like, holy shit.
Someone had triggered the
Drops his
security
coffee
system.
again.
That would require
So he had to get his own
report.
coffee.
And boy, did
So I
he
quite
hate
like the
paperwork.
little Warden Blackwood character.
Abruptly he
I
stopped
think
as
he
he saw the bulk of
works
Hans
quite well
striding
as the
towards
grumpy,
him.
and he sort of sits
Holy
there.
shit. He said
And Hans
aloud,
goes straight
again
past
dropping
him.
his coffee cup, which smashed to the floor. Contents mixing with a
Wheezing
pool of urine
himself.
as he wet himself. He stood frozen.
Hans goes,
his hands went straight
he's
past
like,
him towards medical storage.
God, thank God for that. And he's sort of like, what the hell's going
Laurie,
on?
we have to get out of here.
So he
Becca
comes,
said frantically.
and then we're back
as
into
Laurie
medical
stood,
storage.
Again almost in a state of
Hans comes crashing
Laurie,
in.
Becca shouted, grabbing her friend's shoulders and shaking them. "Laurie, can't you hear that? We have to." She was interrupted.
So this is the point where I've, if
Hands slowly
knowing the
stepped
ending,
into the
if Hans would have
Wailing,
attacked
Becca grabbed a
Laurie
lid from the
here,
trash can
it
as
wouldn't really
Hans swung
made
his
much
massive
sense. So
hammer
this is the
towards
bit I was
her.
saying with
She managed to
the
deflect
psychic
hammer
connection.
clanged
So
on the
is it a
metal shield,
psychic
causing
fight?
Becca
Am I
to
just
stagger
trying
backwards
to
and fall to the floor? Becca
tell you
lifted
that
her arms
there's
to cover her face.
the psychic
Hands
connection
advanced
between
again, lifting
Hans
the
and
hammer
Laurie?
high and then abruptly stopping
Or
and
am
turning
I
to
now
Laurie.
trying to
Laurie locked eyes with her brother,
really,
using her
knowing the
psychic
ending, I'm
connection
trying to
to
tell you
torture
that
her mind. Her eyes
Laurie is
flickered uncontrollably,
reprogramming Hans, saying,
wave
no,
after wave
I
of
want
psychic
everyone
energy
else in this
passed through
asylum dead before you
Hans
come and
dropped
kill
his
this
hammer and
person.
staggered backwards, lifting his
And this
massive
obviously
hands
takes
to
it out
cover
of her a
his
little
ringing
bit.
ears.
She did get a bit of a beating in this
Exhausted,
fight, I
Laurie fell
think.
backwards. A stream of blood trickled from her nose as she slumped to the floor. Hans bellowed
So now he's
aloud,
angry.
stooped to scoop up
Yes,
his
boss.
hammer and abruptly left
Yes,
the room,
sister.
his
Yes,
eyes blazing with a
sister.
fire
I will
like
kill them
which had not been
all,
seen before.
starting with Warden
Getting to her
Blackwood.
feet, Becca rushed over to
I
her
don't
friend,
always talk in
cradling
this
her head in her
voice.
arms as Laurie passed out, her world turning black. Warden Blackwood still stood frozen in the corridor.
And then,
Hans approached him for the
game
second
terms,
time.
this always takes sort
Closed his eyes
of
and
2 or
prayed for the
3,
monster to pass him again.
4 turns
This
to
time
kill
he
all
was
these
not so
people.
fortunate.
And I'm just sort of standing in the closet, healing, searching, and I felt it better to put the whole thing as one long killing spree rather than flick backwards going, Laurie searched, Hans walked forward and killed somebody, Laurie looked around some more, I wouldn't think it would work, so I went, so I'd already got his dark power. And this worked quite well, because the woman, Sal, who was the victim that scattered, or there was a victim that scattered out of the common room, and she scattered every turn, and Hans just basically followed her. So I think it worked quite well in the context of having one victim as a continuity in this killing spree, that being Sal. But I think perhaps I probably, I'll come back to that. I'll just make a note of that. But I think it might have worked better if I'd have done it more from the perspective of Sal. So we didn't like, he was about to abuse Sal, so he gets his nightstick rammed down his throat, and Sal scatters.
Sal scooted away on
So
the
I've got the vision of her just sort of like, just trying to get away from him, and then wherever she goes, he comes after her. So he goes there.
Bumping straight into Nurse Jackson.
There's Nurse Jackson. She's turning around and saying, oh, what's the problem? What's the problem? And Sal's sort of going, oh, they're behind you. But she can't actually talk. She's too scared.
Towards the corridor doors as Hans burst through them.
So Sal grabs her, throws her at Hans, and scatters back into the common room. We don't know what happened to Nurse Jackson. We find out in a minute. So we're sort of following Sal. But the two people have... That was an event or a terror cult that had people moving, I'm sure. So 2 people come back into the asylum. He's got the nurse's head.
Holy Mother of God, Nelson said.
Nelson's a guard, he's got a gun, as you do. I don't think he'd carry them. Maybe he just went to the armory, picked up a gun, came back. He's just about to, sort of like, he's a bit panicked.
This was the opportunity Nelson needed.
Steadied himself and goes wham with the head in there.
He aimed square at Hans's head and began to squeeze the trigger. Just as the head of Nurse Jackson hit him square in the face with such force that it sent him flying back.
Now Hans comes and smushes everybody else.
Harmlessly into the ceiling as he crashed to the floor.
Now, you probably didn't get that. If I actually listened to this without the video, and that bit is just incredibly fast. It does need, sort of works okay being fast because I wanted it to be fast paced, but it's just too fast. It's just too much. The music, I think, on top of it, I just think that bit's a little bit over the top. I don't know.
Skidding on the blood lining the floor of the common room and leaving a smeared trail behind her as she did so. Okay,
and then we get the bit,
okay, mister, she stammered.
Bit of a flash of the humanity of Hans that I'm trying to hint at. So it's not really his fault, he's being controlled. You know, and also trying to go back to the pill mechanic a little bit. So maybe Sal's taken the pills. Oh yeah, the other one's the one that makes people move and steal pills. So Sal's taken the pills, and maybe that's just given her a little bit of sort of psychic ability, and she's trying to calm Hans down, and it's working. And then he becomes tender and strokes the tears from her cheek, and then she goes, "You're a bit like my brother," and he goes, "Brother," and it sort of like just sends him into a frenzy again because it's reminded him of his sister.
Abruptly,
sort of the
Hans
control
bellowed
that she
angrily,
has, so he just loses
fire in
the
his
plot
eyes
and
reignited.
smushes poor
He
Sal.
switched his hold on
I
Sal
felt
to grab
a
her
bit
head
sorry
in his
for him.
powerful hand. With his thumb and pinky fingers digging into the side of Sal's temples, he squeezed with all his might, crushing Sal's head to pieces before flinging her body across the common room like a rag doll. Hans paused momentarily to survey the carnage of the common room before hoisting his hammer onto his shoulder and leaving the scene behind him.
And we calm down a little bit now. So now we go back to back to Dr. Diaz
again rewound the footage of the
and
camera
his
in the medical storage
transformation
room,
into Dr. Death.
Mazorski's Night on Bear Mountain
With a
blared
bit of a
loudly from the
Mazorski
gramophone.
in the background.
There it was, the flickering eyes.
So he's
Surely
looking at the
evidence of
footage that's going on, and he's trying to find
There
proof
could be no doubt.
of the
His
fact
suspicions were
that
true. He switched the camera
there's some
to the
kind of
live feed from the
psychic
common room
ability,
as Sal swallowed
or
the pill.
and
Diaz
he's
watched
given
with
Laurie the
fascination as the monster
pills, and
paused.
now he's sort of
Laurie
like saying,
told
is
his
that
DNA
making
had
her
indeed
stronger?
been
Is that making her able to control him better?
They even have a small effect
And we
on
come back to the
viscera.
pills later in the doctor's
Surveying the
office,
bloody
and
shots from the rest
the
of the cameras confirmed
victim
it.
in there takes one
Hans
that
had
makes him
left no one
stronger.
alive
So
but the
we're
carpenter
trying to say
No doubt
Death
the police
has
would be here soon.
accomplished
It
his
was
mission
time.
of perfecting
The
these
serene look on
pills
his face
using
did not
Laurie's
change as the
DNA.
music reached a
He
crescendo
has
and he
no
reached
interest
down
to being
slowly
here
to
when the
his
police
desk.
arrive or when Hans
He
comes through the
meticulously
door.
placed the pills in a small leather
So he
case and tucked it into his breast pocket of his
completes
tailored
his
jacket.
transformation
Then he
into the
carefully removed
mask
the package in the drawer,
from
tied
Nightbreed
the
or
bow of
Dr.
string
Death.
and unfolded the brown
And this is
paper.
sort of like almost
He
an
lovingly
exact
removed the
description of
evil-looking brown
the
leather
mask that
The
Dr.
off-centered
Decker
gleaming steel zip where the
uses.
mouth was seemed to smile at him. With great care,
And he has
gently
his,
pulled the mask over
he's
his
a
head,
very tidy,
relishing
very
the feel of power
meticulous
it
sort of
provided.
person.
Straightening his tie, he then reached
Very,
out to retrieve the pair of oversized razor-sharp scalpels that had been
dangerous
custom made by
person.
the master forgers in Sheffield, England. As
And he
Mazorski's
steps out into the
masterpiece came to an
corridor,
end, Dr. Death clicked off the light in the theatre and stepped out
calmly
into the corridor.
slices the throats of the two people
Hearing the screams from the common
and
room,
just
the remaining
strolls
patients
out
had
of
tried
the
to flee,
asylum
only to find the doors locked.
with his pills.
The theatre! Wesley yelled frantically. We can hide there! Wesley and Lachlan skidded round the corners to the theatre just as the doctor closed the door behind them. They ground to a halt. Gentlemen, Death said calmly, the doctor
Another
is
line
in,
from
he finished
Hellraiser
before
2.
serenely running
I
his
obviously
scalpel
was
across
watching
the throats
Hellraiser
of the
2
patients simultaneously. Wesley
just
and
before
Lachlan
I
opened
wrote the
doors.
story.
The doctor calmly walked past them and opened the utility under
There he
the
goes.
keys.
He's off into the
He
night.
relished the
See you
smell of the
later.
fresh
Might be
night air as
back
he
in a
left the
sequel.
asylum behind him and
I don't think there'll be a
disappeared into
sequel.
the
That
night.
might be.
His work had just begun. Back in the medical storage room, Laurie's eyes began to flicker open. Becca, her face stained with black mascara, brushed the cheek of her friend tenderly.
Now, this
The
is
screaming in this
something that I'm
silence
going to come
died
to at the
down.
end. The interaction
Laurie, thank
between
God,
Becca and Laurie.
said. Bills, Laurie croaked.
So now we're sort of saying,
Becca
okay,
started to
Laurie's a
whistle.
bit weak, so maybe if she takes one of
Pills,
these special
Laurie
pills
said
that Dr.
croakily.
Death has been
My pills.
developing, that
She
will sort
managed to
of
get
make
out,
her recover,
gesturing to the
and
pocket of her pants.
we're sort of
Becca
just
rummaged in
saying
the
there are
pocket,
these
finding
pills
a
out
large
there,
green pill
and there's
handed it to
perhaps
Laurie.
some kind
Laurie
of power
swallowed the pill greedily
or
and began to sit up. The
whatever
energy that had been drained
that
from her
is
psychic
given by
exchange with
taking
Hans
these pills,
started to
which is
return.
true to the mechanic of the
Can you
game
stand?
anyway.
Becca asked as Laurie slowly got to her feet. Yes,
And
Laurie
then
said confidently, standing up and wiping the
I did
tap of
find
blood
a
from her
bone
nose.
saw. I always
She
thought
glanced
when I
around
was
the storage area, and her eyes landed
coming
upon
in to
an
play the
object in
game,
corner.
if I find a weapon,
Laurie's eyes flashed ever so slightly
I'm going to
red as she
change
caught a
it.
glimpse of the
And
sledgehammer
I had a little
propped against the wall.
blast of music there
Pushing
saying
Becca away, she moved
that
towards
there's
the
a
hammer. As she grabbed
link
the smooth
between
wooden
Laurie
shaft, Becca could
and
have sworn
Hans.
that a chill ran through the air. Laurie stood transfixed. Her hand
Laurie's
rested on
perhaps
the
not all
shaft.
she seems to
Feel
be.
an energy starting to
I always
consume her body.
wanted
The hairs on the back
the
of her
weapon
neck
to be a
pricked as she
sledgehammer,
lifted
because
the weapon
whatever
and felt its
happened,
weight. Much smaller than her
I always
weapon,
wanted
weighed
Laurie to
20
show
pounds,
to
she
show
lifted
some
it with ease and
flashes of
rested it in
hands,
both
even if
hands,
it turned out it
staring
was the
at it
other ending
contentedly as
where she
continued
wasn't the
to
killer.
caress the handle. Laurie,
I always wanted
Becca
her
said,
to use
again snapping her friend back to reality.
some flashes
This way,
of
Laurie
potential.
said,
And I
opening
thought
the door from the
have
storage
her
room
having
and
her
heading
own
back to the
sledgehammer would
reception.
be just a little hint
As the
that
pair reached the lobby, Becca ran straight
maybe
to
we
the
should be a
doors and
little bit
rattled them.
worried about
Damn,
Laurie,
still
so
locked,
I switched the bone saw out
Search
for a
release
sledgehammer.
switch, Laurie
Same
said.
rules,
I have
just
something I
use
need
the
to take
sledgehammer
care
as
of
an image
first,
rather than a
she
bone
added,
saw.
before running from reception.
And now, by this stage of the game, when I was playing it, I was like, I've
Samuel
seriously got to
Shine
save
caught
one
a glimpse
person
of
in this
Hans
game.
as
So
he
I
rampaged through
went
the
and
asylum
saved
locked the door to
one
his office,
person,
hiding himself and his current
and then came
boss,
back
John
to
Murphy,
reception
inside.
after he'd got out.
They had heard the screams, but for the last
And
half
that
an hour
turns
or
out
so,
to be
it had been
Dr.
quiet.
Shine. Well,
Murphy, a
not
stout and irritable
the
fellow
event,
with a
Dr.
propensity for
Sunshine, but I
violence,
thought
was
I'd just
becoming
use play on
agitated.
words there. Anyway,
Hey, Doc,
and we're going back
some
now to the
candy.
pills, so
Murphy shoved the
what's his
pill into
name?
his mouth.
Murphy?
John,
Possibly.
you shouldn't have done that, Dr. Shine chastised.
Ate
You
the
think,
pill,
Doc?
becomes
Murphy
strong.
retorted.
Urgh.
Diaz says they make me strong. Might be glad of it. He says your touchy-feely nonsense
And
makes
then
me
we just
weak.
sort of like
John,
referring
they
back to
aren't safe.
Dr. Death.
No, they make you angry, Shine continued in his calming voice. With those words,
Hans comes in, and this is the bit. This is the bigger reveal of something's different with Hans.
Murphy shouted gleefully before jumping at Hans, yelling, "Come get some!"
So he has to die, but he has to electrocute Hans first to reprogram his brain. So he jumps at Hans, goes like that, gets thrown into the wall, the electricity cable goes down and jams it in his face, and obviously something's happened to bring the victim out, Dr. Shine in game terms.
Knocking a main power cable loose. Is that all you got, big man?
And I leg it with him to save him.
Shoving it into Hans's face.
So here we go, here's Hans being electrocuted, and the eyes reignite blue. So I'm telling you there, as somebody who's listening or watching, that something's different. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm telling you it's different. Look at his eyes, man.
This time Hans was ready. He caught the madman's incoming
strike. And again, I didn't want Hans to have a violent kill there, because I thought if he's now reprogrammed and we're trying to say, well, he's not that bad after all, so he just sort of like was defending himself, or almost just threw him away into the wall and killed him. Because he's
Jesus, Laurie, Jesus,
Laurie's still the hero now, because look, she's going to save the doctor. Come on, let's go. And this is coming up is to the reveal, and I think I could have perhaps done a little more on Laurie's speech. I suppose if it was a movie, you might have a little flashback sequence going, when she's explaining to Becca. Did you not? You'd have like a little flashback to, you remember this happening? Well, this really happened. You remember this happening? Well, this really happened. So he comes in. And now she's talking to him. We're trying to justify the disappearance. I should have been the hero. He fell into the lake. I should have been the hero. I blame you for it. We choreographed that to perfection, and you fucked it up. And he's saying, no. Now, my mind is clear. I sound very deep. Becca's standing there and going, what the hell's going on? Come on, let's go, man. So Laurie's like, shut up,
what the hell, Laurie? Let's go.
It's all your fault.
She was cut off by
I think I perhaps could have. So this is Laurie's little speech.
You fool! You still don't see, do you? With all your fancy education, you are blind. When I came to Camp Happy Trails, I found my home. I found my family. I remembered. All my life, girls like you have had everything, and I have had nothing. Then I remembered something inside. I remembered that my brother would do my bidding, just as when I were a babe in arms. Becca gurgled as Laurie's grip on her throat tightened. I took your boyfriends, just as you tried to take mine.
Essentially,
using my brother as a tool made it so
jealous.
easy. Oh, Becca, wake up. Time to die. Laurie squeezed.
And we think Becca's dead. She's at least on the floor. Wake up, time to die, from Blade Runner. Works beautifully. Not the end speech by Rutger Hauer.
Laurie dropped Becca's body to the floor
in
and
the
slowly
marketplace.
turned back to her brother,
Wake up,
lifting her own
time
hammer
to
into
die.
both hands.
And then we have the fight between the two. And all of a sudden now, I'm sort of like, that's your reveal. Now what do you do? You're sort of like, well, okay. As a listener, I'm now sort of thinking, well, maybe you start rooting for Hans now. Because that's the kind of... And I wanted in this fight... And in the fight, Laurie was actually dominant, because the terror card, the finale card, didn't have a vast amount of attacks, I don't think. But... So Laurie was dominant in the gameplay fight, and I wanted her to be dominant. I wanted her to sort of literally just completely and utterly dominate her brother in the fight, just to show how evil she actually is. And she's taunting him. Hans is sort of like, you know, trying to deal with her twice as quick sister, who's very strong, who's also sort of taunting him, and he doesn't really, you know. I wanted to portray him as being a little bit confused, a little bit up, you know,
Hans bellowed loudly and staggered to his feet, his body
and try and sort of build on the fact that, you know, it's Laurie's the bad guy, the way she's taunting him.
She asked.
Go back to living in the woods.
Eating like an animal.
She thinks he's so beneath her.
She deftly poked her hammer towards her brother.
He's taunting her.
Backwards. You killed Mother, you know.
And then she's trying to make him angry, so trying to make him make a mistake.
Hans bellowed aloud.
So he does, he swings it.
Laurie was caught off guard by the ferocity of the blow. She just managed to raise her hammer to parry the swipe away before it connected with her head. You killed her!
You made me.
Hans bellowed. You made me! He swung again, enraged. This time Laurie was ready.
So
she danced under the side-swinging blow and countered, swinging
she's
with all her might.
succeeded into
The
making
hammer
him
caught her
angry.
brother square
And
on the side of
she's
the
sort of
head,
now using her
smashing his iron
speed
mask
to
in two and sending him
smash him,
crashing
and
to
she
the
knocks
floor
his
to
mask
reveal a
off.
hideous and scarred face
He's
beneath.
hideously scarred face from
Hans
the
fell
fire
to
in
his
the
knees,
barn.
flinging his
He's
hands up to cover his
now
disfigured face.
ashamed of his face, so he
Gently,
sort of drops to his
Laurie
knees and
reached
tries
down
to
and placed
cover
the head
it.
of her sledgehammer under
And I got
her
this.
brother's
This is
chin.
beautiful. I really like
She
this
raised the
imagery.
hammer
So
tenderly,
she's there,
tilting
sort
her
of
brother's
become
head slightly
more
upwards.
tender. She's reached down with the
Look at
hammer.
me,
She's
brother.
just sort of tilted his head up to look at me,
Hans
brother.
uncovered his face and
And
looked
Hans
up
is
at
sort
his
of like
sister with
helpless
pleading
on the
blue
floor,
eyes.
and her sister sort of just raising his head so they
Sister,
can look each other in
please,
the eye.
he begged, tears beginning to roll down
And now
his
he's
cheeks.
crying.
Laurie paused momentarily, cocked her head to the
Wham.
left, and matter-of-factly replied, "Goodbye, brother."
So if you're in any doubt,
With lightning speed,
Mr.
she
Any
changed her grip on the hammer
sort
and brought
of
it down with a
empathy
ferocious
of
overhead swing,
Laurie
crushing
there,
her brother's
no,
exposed
just
skull.
going to kill him.
As Hans's body toppled forward to the floor, Laurie heard the spraying
And
of gravel as the arriving
coincidentally,
car screeched to a halt.
Lucinda Cop has just arrived. So.
She immediately recognised the voices of Lucinda Cop and
Now,
Dr.
the only
Shine's
two people
exchange
who
outside.
actually know what really happened
Thank
are
God, she heard Shine say.
Hans,
there,
who's
Laurie,
dead,
she
and
saved
Becca,
me. You
who
have
you
to
think
help her.
is dead.
Laurie slumped to the floor,
So
dropping
Laurie's
her
now
hammer with a
going
dull
to
thud.
go back to
Seconds later, the door floor
playing
opened and
the
Lucinda
victim.
Cop burst in. She immediately saw the massive bulk of Hans prone on the floor, his smashed iron mask laying to one side and the monster in a heap with a pool of blood surrounding him. And then the body of Becca Martin slumped against the reception desk. She slowly lowered her pistol and approached the now sobbing Laurie. "Shh," she said, putting her arms around the girl, cradling her head and brushing her blonde hair to one side.
It's over.
It's over.
It's only just beginning.
God, Detective Cop.
Oh,
Laurie choked in between
Detective Cop.
sobs.
It was horrible.
He tried to kill us. He killed Becca.
I mean, I'm sure there's some kind of
Cop said
forensic
again,
evidence, or
gently stroking
maybe
Laurie's
the
hair.
CCTV system.
Cop reached
but,
down for her radio.
you know, we'll go with
Dispatch,
it.
this is Detective Cop. We have a 1033
That's
at
a real
Wolfe Asylum.
code.
Urgent assistance
I
required.
think I'll look that up. 1033.
10-4,
10-4.
assistance already en route. The radio crackled back. Help is coming. Just.
And then, obviously,
Cop
Becca's
started to say to
not
Laurie before she was interrupted by a
dead.
coughing coming
Oh,
from Becca. Jesus, she's alive. Cop said.
And then we
Carefully resting
end
Laurie
this
against the
little
wall,
bit
she headed over to Becca.
with Laurie just reaching for the
With her
hammer.
back to Laurie, Cop didn't see Laurie's eyes flash
Shit,
red
she's
briefly
alive. I'm going to have to
as she
knock
reached
both
for the
of them
hammer
off now.
inside.
And the police arrive. And then we find out that
Present
actually we're back at
The
Camp
kids and the
Happy
councillors
Trails,
were all gathered round the
and
crackling
it's
campfire as
only
Scott
a
finished his story.
story
And
after
that
all.
is the real story of Hans the Butcher
Because it
and his
is,
sister
really,
Laurie.
a story.
But what happened to Laurie?
So we have a
And
little
Becca?
interaction.
And
This is,
Detective Cop?
and
Jodie
this
asked,
is just
wide-eyed.
put in as a little thank you,
Well,
I think, to
the
all the
police
people
arrived
who
before
sort of
Laurie
commented
had
and
a chance to
helped
do
me with
anything,
different
but Becca had to go to
different
hospital
aspects, be
and
it
was
sort
in
of
a
bits of
coma.
language or ideas, or
It was weeks
people
before
who've
she was
given
able to tell
feedback
the
on
real
things. So I
story.
sort of name check a few
by that
people
time,
from
Laurie had
Discord and
gone.
from
Disappeared.
YouTube here
Some
who've
people
given
said that she
feedback
fled
and
to
sort of
Europe to
support
hide
and
out.
stuff like that. So I just thought it was
But I
quite
think
a,
she might have come home.
quite a nice thing
Camp
to do.
Happy Trails. Scott said spookily. Gabby, I'm scared. Can I sleep in the cabin with you tonight?
That's you, Adela.
Jodie asked. Nice work, Buster. That's your night ruined.
Damn it!
Gabby said. Celeste, Marty, Alan, William, and Oz all laughed. As Red
And
Light
Laurie's in the
went
bushes.
tree
Oh
line.
no, you couldn't see that coming, could you? You could. Huh. And then,
Elsewhere,
actually, it's
in a
not only a
small
story,
bed in
it's
Camden,
all
North
somehow
London,
related
The red glow
to
from the digital clock
Red
danced slightly
and
as it
Storybook
flicked
Woods.
midnight.
What's going on there?
Red yawned
Oh,
and closed her
it's
laptop
like
with a
it's
click.
like
She should get
this
some
is the
sleep.
DiCaprio film
She was
Inception.
meeting
It's
Grandma
like
in the morning for
7
coffee.
layers down. You
And
find
Red
out
would
that
love
it's
seeing her
actually
grandma.
all related to the bloody board game anyway. And there we go. So it rattled on a bit, didn't it? Crikey, oh blimey. So what I've got at the end is, I think it generally came across as I wanted it to come across. I like it. I like the twist. I think the twist works really well. The twist went down all right, actually. I thought I was a bit worried about it, but I think it went down well. So that's good. I've got here, the narration was too fast. The story was too intense. I still agree with that. It was just, if you should just stop and listen to it without me rambling over it, it's very fast and it's very over the top. And I've got, if I knew the ending, would I have written Happy Trails differently? I would have written Happy Trails slightly differently, so it didn't make context exactly in the sense of the first one, because when I wrote the ending, this one, I obviously didn't know when I wrote the first one what was going to happen. So I suppose there's a little bit of a problem there. I could probably go back and tweak Happy Trails if I wanted, might do at some stage in the future. And I've got this question here saying, are they all the same? As in, are the stories all the same? And this was something that was brought up by, I think, Celeste on the Discord server. The same thing happens, and it does, because that's generally what happens in the game. So this started me thinking about the overall sort of thing, and I think I can get away with it to a certain extent in this type of story, which is obviously inspired by Friday the 13th Halloween type slasher films. And generally they're all the same. So you can just say, well, I'm just parodying the actual source material. And in fact, yes, they're all the same. Overall, what I was beginning to get is more of a, maybe I can link these in somehow. Don't know. The other problem it's got is the killing. Do we care about the victims, or is it just sort of like an exercise in how we can kill each victim? And we had no empathy towards the victims at all. We kind of know, I suppose, if you're playing the game, this is one thing you can do, because you know who survives, who doesn't survive, so you can try and use the victims in some way, but they're very immobile in game terms. So it almost becomes, do we now start tailoring the game to make the story better? And that's an interesting question that I suppose you have to sort of think about. Now, the thing that struck me at the end of it, after watching this, is the theme that came through is the relationship I've got here between Beckett and Laurie. Obviously, Beckett is a character that I developed from the start, so she sort of grew as she came into it. Laurie was also grew into a nutcase. But there's this relationship between Becca and Laurie. Becca is going to visit Laurie. Becca is sort of like upset when Laurie gets hurt. Becca is the one who's betrayed by Laurie. But what's she doing there in the first place? And I came out at the end of this and I think Becca is in love with Laurie in some way, shape or form. Absolutely sort of, and she's doing this because she loves Laurie. And I don't think Laurie's gay, so I don't know how that works. But that's the overriding thing I get with Becca. All this she's been through, and at the end of this, she still loves Laurie. She's still alive. Anyway, Laurie's disappeared, but she still loves Laurie. And when I look at this, and obviously it was done as a trilogy to stop, but now I'm thinking, there's a way I can do another one to this which fits into the overall story type thing. And is that something that is important in the next story, if there is one, the fourth in the trilogy, to quote Douglas Adams? But don't know, we'll see. But that's certainly something that I got that I wasn't intending, but when I watched it back, I was like, yeah, I think that's a theme that's going to carry through. We've obviously got Dr. Death roaming about, and we've got Laurie on the run. So there's still something that can be done story-wise, but it also sort of closes it all off. Anyway, that's me done for the time. I'm going to start hopefully working on another next story very soon, which is going to be in Kanyamba. You might see snips of, I don't know, depends when I release this, but hopefully back to some storytelling soon. All right, thanks guys, see you all later.